Please be seated. Let's see, just announcements, because it's our normal worship time. The Herman family, through Congregational Care, will be holding a Thanksgiving dinner on November 24th at 1 p.m. up in Wesley Hall. If you're interested in joining the meal or in having delivery to your house, please contact Kat in the office. This is potluck, so bring along a salad or a pie or something. On Sunday, November 20th at 10 o'clock, that's this Sunday, we're going to be showing some videos, some BUMC videos and some disaffiliation videos. So that'll start at 10 o'clock, and we'll figure out what we're going to do when we get there. Tomorrow, Conversations will be at Pizza Ranch. So if you want to come and talk more about, get more questions answered about all that is before us in the midst of this conflict, we will be meeting in the back room at Pizza Ranch at noon tomorrow. And where's Stephanie? You want me to read this giant thing, or do you just want to tell them? Come on.
So you got to hear me last week talk about Operation Christmas Child, and this is the week. This is National Collection Week, and so far our drop-off location has 500 shoeboxes that have come in from churches and all over our area and individuals. So that is awesome, an awesome start to our week. We are madly getting things ready up in Fellowship Hall right now for our packing party, which is this coming Saturday. So if you're available for a few minutes after service tonight, we would love to have you help us carry a few boxes upstairs because we need to get set up for that. And you are all welcome to come on Saturday for 30 minutes or 3 hours to help us pack approximately 800 shoe boxes that will then be loading into the trailer that is now out in our parking lot as well. So thank you for all of your support for OCC. Keep praying for us this week, especially with the weather and the cold, and just for the safety of all those involved. And I think that's it.
Awesome, thank you. Last announcement is there will be no worship on Wednesday, no WOW next week because of Thanksgiving. And with this, I would like to introduce to you Tom Schinkel. He is an officer for our Iowa chapter WCA. He is the lead pastor at Grandview United Methodist Church, and he is going to speak to us tonight about the disaffiliation. So if you'd all welcome Tom.
Awesome. Thanks, Ben. I'm going to grab a music stand. Some of the folks here I know, some of you know me. I find that a lot of times a lot more people know who I am than I don't know who you are. And so I'm glad you came out. I'm going to jump around, not here. I'm not going to jump around. Is this on? Did you hear that? That was a joke, Mike. Yeah, I go through this myself. So here's the thing, real quick. So, before you speak, people got to know who you are. And so I started as a pastor at United Methodist Church in 1985. Went down to Louisiana, 20 years old. And in 1986, I read a book called And Are We Yet Alive? And I felt God called me to be part of a movement to revitalize and revive the United Methodist denomination. I was like all in, like a company man, right? And so I did a number of different things. When I came back to seminary at University of Dubuque Theological School in 1997, I was appointed to serve Hopkinton. And so because I was at Hopkinton, God provided a man that mentored me and taught me, and his name was Bill Lux. How many of you know Bill, or you knew Bill? Okay, so Bill was my spiritual mentor. He, when I got ordained a full elder, we were walking down to do that, and we're getting ready to go up on the stage for me to be ordained, and the bishop's going to lay hands on you down in Ames, right? And Bill was with me. And Jim Hankey, some of you remember that guy, that character, also one of my friends. He was the district superintendent. And he looked at me, and Bill, and he said, actually, laity can't go up on the stage and be part of the ordination process. And because Jim Hankey used colorful language, I did too, and said, seriously, you're going to try and stop me and Bill Lux from walking up there? This is the most spiritual man I've ever known. And so in my ordination pictures, Mr. Bill Lux is laying his hands on me. Part of what Bill taught me, besides the spiritual part, is that he taught me, mentored me about how to be a leader in the Iowa Annual Conference and move towards being a leader in the General Conference, and to affect change from within. And if you knew Bill, he was a very smart, very gentle man, right? And in so many words, what Bill's advice to me was the first several years of my ministry was, kind of keep your head down and your mouth shut. Don't let them know where you're at. And show up to everything. And I did. And so I've had the privilege of being able to lead here in the Iowa Annual Conference through the years a number of things. When they've asked, I've served conference finance and administration, bishop task force on the apportionments, chair of the board of camps, other things like that. I'm currently, because even though they know who I am, they must still like me enough that I'm currently on the board of pensions and the board of directors. And I actually am heading down to Des Moines tonight when we're done. So that's a little bit of who I am. I also have been involved with the WCA since its beginning in 2016 when we came back from General Conference. Here's where I want to go tonight, okay? Where I want to go is I'm going to call out some slide numbers because here's where I really want to start before I dig into a lot of this stuff. I really want to start with number 24, okay? We have the opportunity to build and be part of, to be early adapters to a new denomination. And you, I hope, are excited about this. That's where I want to start. Before we get into the stuff that got us here, I want to start saying, look, if you are right of center theologically or ideology, okay, to call yourself traditional, conservative, whatever labels you want to use, we have an opportunity finally to be part of building a new denomination, and you can read that for yourself, a new denomination that is going to be scripturally sound. The way that I tell people this is we get to be part of a new denomination that is built upon the Nicene Creed and the Apostles' Creed. Okay, think about that. We have an opportunity to jump into the Global Methodist Church and really truly be what I had a pastor friend down at Lutheran Church of Hope in Des Moines, fastest growing church in America, okay? And I was talking to Scott at a leadership thing, and I was lamenting about the United Methodist Church, and Scott says, Tom, no offense, but understand that Lutheran Church of Hope, I don't know how many tens of thousands of members they have now, in West Des Moines, Ankeny, Ames. He said, understand, no offense, Tom, but here at Hope, we strive to be a Jesus church. The United Methodist, you're seen as an issues church. Let that sink in. We have an opportunity, folks, to be part of something, no matter how big your church is, or if you combine churches, to get back to being a Jesus church. I think that's worth an amen. All right, making sure you're still awake and don't get loggy on me. So that's where I wanted to start. The way I've been presenting this to my church in Grandview and also Center Grove and the Wesley Church, smaller congregations that I give leadership to, and we have a campus pastor that serves there, is we've had a number of presentations, 3 big, large group presentations that overflow, lots of people there, okay? Some of you were there. You were there from, I'm sorry, Steve from, Colesburg, okay? So then we had Mike Morgan come 2 weeks ago, and he presented on a Sunday night, and he presented facts, information, answered questions. Then we went into a series of small group meetings during the week, and then last Sunday night, Bill Poland, I don't know if you know him, some of you remember him? Yeah, Bill came, and so this is, if I counted this is in my count, so in the last 10 days, this is my 22nd meeting talking about this, okay? And I'm just going to tell you a way I'm going to talk about it, and I'll try to illustrate it with slides. There are 3 things going on of why we are at this point, okay? And the first one is, I haven't even got a slide for this. The first one is, and I'm going to say it's the one that many of our leaders and many people on the more progressive side, they want to make sure we're centered on, this is all about gays and lesbians. And it's not. Why do they want to keep making this all about biblical? It's really about biblical interpretation. Y'all agree with that? You know, the Bible has something to say about marriage, sexuality. But my opinion is that if the debate can be kept on gays and lesbians, it means that people can demean us and demonize us as haters and homophobes. You understand? We live in a WWF wrestling world, folks. We understand white hats and black hats, good guys and bad guys. So through the years, anybody that's wanted to say, wait a minute, God has something to say about self-avowed practicing, not just somebody that has a feeling. You know, we believe God has something to say about that, especially when it comes to marriage and leading a church, being a pastor. And so it's easier then to say, what? You're a homophobe. You hate gay people. You want to exclude them. Has anybody ever heard that? Okay. They want to keep it there. And I start here to say, do not let other people tell you or try to define. If you're going to disaffiliate, even though the official motion is we got to disaffiliate because I can't remember what it says about gay and lesbian issues. That's poor leadership, but understand it's part of a tactic. And so I'm saying, please keep that in mind and correct people and help them understand this is not just, it is not only about gay and lesbian marriage and gay and lesbian pastors. It's not. It's a part of it, okay? But, we didn't start arguing about gay and lesbian marriage until Iowa and other states, and then the Supreme Court legalized it, right? So here's where the next big thing is that I think is important to understand, is that the United Methodist denomination was born in 1968, okay? And in probably about 1969, we began to decline, okay? Seriously, you can look all this up, okay? So as we declined in the 70s and 80s, okay, and even the 90s, the argument over homosexuality and the language and the discipline that's been there since 1972, we've declined not just because of our fighting over human sexuality. And I want you to hear this. Why are we declining? Why were we as a denomination declining? To me, this is my opinion, this is the bigger issue. It's about our leadership, okay? It's about a book of discipline that has outdated, broken rules. It's about annual conferences that have outdated, broken rules that don't help but instead hinder. It's about theology. It's about progressive. It used to be liberal Protestant theology, but it's turned to progressive, and I would even add woke Christian theology. Well, maybe I shouldn't say Christian because it's trending towards Unitarian Universalist. But understand that's the other big thing. With the influence that came in the 70s and 80s in our seminaries, okay, of liberation theology, which has a huge basis in Marxism, right? And the oppressor and the oppressed, this is part of what white privilege and all that come out of. And then you had feminist theology. Now, what am I talking about? I'm talking about these are taught in seminaries about how to make sense of God and how to make sense of Jesus. So you had liberation theology, and then feminist theology, and then a more radical womanist theology, and then you had black theology, and then now we have queer theology. The people who've graduated as pastors from those seminaries have become our leaders. Does that make sense? They've become our leaders. Not just bishops, but pastors and heads of boards and agency, district superintendents, people that have power and authority. So I'm going to maintain that the bigger issue that has brought our decline is, let's go to slide 26, okay? So look at the United, this should be the United Methodist Church, slide 26. Okay, here in the United Methodist Church, if you can read that membership in Iowa, 1971, when we were 3 years old, we had 303 folks. 2021, we had 140,000 here. We've been declining. I would say our loss is declined again, partly because of bad leadership, because of my opinion, bad theology, okay? It has declined because of certain practices that we have in the United Methodist Church that have killed us. Let me tell you one of them. When a bishop is elected bishop out at jurisdictional conferences, okay, which is just a pure political dog and pony show. I've been a part of it, and it's almost disgusting. When they're elected bishop, they hit the lottery. They're bishop for life, okay? Guaranteed appointments. Do y'all know about these? For ordained elders, you're guaranteed an appointment. We make a deal with the bishop, so to speak. When we're ordained and say, Bishop, I'll go where you tell me to go. And Phil and I both know we've had some bishops tell us where to go, right? We say, we'll go where you send us, but you're always going to send us. You're always going to have a place for us. Well, that sounds like a pretty sweet deal, a guaranteed appointment, guaranteed employment, guaranteed appointment for life. But here's how it played out. And this has been a huge issue for me since the first general conference I went to in 2008. We have pastors that, I'll be nice, that don't produce a lot of fruit. We have some clergy that are not good leaders. We have some pastors, and I'm really picking on ordained elders because I am one, they kill their churches. They decline. Maybe some of you have encountered some bad pastors through the years. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hand. Well, what's a guaranteed appointment do? Guaranteed appointment says, yeah, you really made a mess of things 2 years you're at that church, but we got to move you to another church, another 2-point, 3-point charge. And they hang in there, and it's conflict, and it's trouble, and people leave, and they go, well, we got to move you someplace else, okay? So when I really got the brokenness of our system was many years ago. I'll go back to Jim Hankey. He was district superintendent, and I was at a meeting with him, and I found out a particular pastor had just been named a district superintendent. And I said, Jim, that woman has done nothing but leave a trail of broken churches behind her. Why in the world would you bring her up? And he said, Tom, what are we going to do with her? We can't let her keep destroying churches. And you know, it took me some while to come up with an analogy, but I'm just like, you know, imagine Casey's General Store, which is a great Iowa company, right? Imagine if they had store managers that the store managers just were killing their store. Their sales were going down. Oh, let's move them to another store. And they keep moving them, and they keep having the same result. And finally they say, you know, let's just bring them into corporate headquarters, and they can be the trainers of store managers. Well, do you think Casey's would go out of business? Yeah. Nobody's that stupid. Well, we are. Okay. So there's, what I'm trying to say is there's some bigger features here that have led to our decline. There's our worship attendance one just from 87. And you know, I get it. COVID had an impact and all that. But the reason we want to disaffiliate is I've got a video on the WCA website, and I just put it like this, like, how much longer do we want to keep bailing water out of a sinking denominational ship? Okay? Another way about this is, if you look forward, because you need to make the right decision for your church, not just your personal opinion. And you need to make the right decision for your church, not just for this year, but for next year and 5 years and 10 years and 50 years when we're all gone. You need to make a decision of what kind of church you're going to be, okay? And I believe that, again, being part of the Global Methodist Church is to be a part of an organization that's got a lot of features that are different than United Methodism that give us a lot of benefits. The Global United Methodist Church doesn't have guaranteed appointments. Fact. If you're serving, even, you know, non-ordained, licensed, local, whatever, which they're going to make that easier. If you're not producing fruit and you're ineffective, take a seat. You know, and that sounds harsh, but it's like high expectations. Because, right, low expectations, guess what? They're always met. Fair? GMC is going to have higher expectations for our pastors. Okay? That's a benefit, and it has an immediate feature. It's going to change the nature of the church. So I'm just saying, as you consider this, it's not just about right now. It's about being early adapters now for the sake of what's coming after us. You know where that thing, early adapter, comes from? Some of you may know this. That came out of Iowa State University Extension in that transition when gasoline and diesel tractors were being introduced to farmers. And the farmers didn't want to give up their horses, okay? So what they study phenomena was the early adapter farmers were like, well, I guess we'll give that Minneapolis Moline tractor a try and let the kids ride the horses, okay? And there are a lot of people going, I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure that's the way to go. And they were critical of it and said a lot of things. But the bell curve comes in and the early adapters start and then other people begin to follow. I believe that's what's going on with the Global Methodist Church right now. But again, it's a prayerful decision that you have to make, covered in prayer, about what's best. What's best for your church, okay? Even if some people, I have members at Grandview that have gay and lesbian children, grandchildren or whatever, they're having to wrestle with this. They're having to struggle with this and say, well, I really want to make our decision all about my preference for my kid. Even though, by the way, if you talk to some of those folks, not all, when I talk to some of these people, I'm like, well, is your child, your grown child, are they worshiping regularly? Oh, no. Okay. So like in the United Methodist Church that you want us to change everything, do you think they're feeling a call to the ministry? Well, I doubt it. They're a biochemical engineer or whatever. Like, okay. Well, if they've fallen in love, are they in love? Do they want to get married? Well, not yet. I don't know. I'm like, well, okay, so two of the things that we don't allow in the Methodist Church that we're not supposed to, they're not interested in. They can do everything else. They can worship. They can go to Sunday school, teach Sunday school, sing in the choir. But, So, again, I'm going to bring it back on point. Bigger issue is about decline. The captain and the crew of the USS UMC have run us into an iceberg. And I don't believe it's going to get better. That's my opinion. I don't know how it's going to get better. Okay? We have a system that's lawless. Okay, we have a system that's ungovernable. We can't even figure out when to hold general conference, and only general conference speaks for the whole church. If you want to go to let's try slide number 6. Okay, let me see where I'm at. Okay, drift. Okay, all right. Let me click to 7. Okay, because I kind of talked about this. Our United Methodist Seminaries, liberal theology. Okay. I'm going to keep going, so just don't get upset. I got to get to the slide I want. It's actually number 12, okay? Boards of Ordained Ministry, okay? It's supposed to be against the rule to ordain or appoint a practicing self-avowed homosexual. Our Board of Ordained Ministry in Iowa used to play don't ask, don't tell, okay? So there were gay and lesbian people that were ordained and appointed, okay? We're past that. Okay, we're at openly. Our Board of Ordained Ministry is flagrantly wanting to ordain practicing self-avowed homosexuals to ordain them and appoint them. Okay, that's a fact. That's happening. The Bishop Laurie asked me several years ago. Said, Tom, I'd like to have you be on the Board of Ordained Ministry, and I said, well, okay, I'll give that a try. I lasted one day. So I went down, and thankfully there were some other traditional pastors there, and we kind of sat at a table. And I said, am I getting this correct? We're spending our time here this morning before lunch talking about the 52 gender expressions, because Facebook said there's 52 gender expressions. And so then after lunch, we spent our time on, and so this was like in 2017. After lunch, it was like, we're not going to ask the question anymore. We're not going to check social media. We're going to ordain whoever we want. So that was done. I talked to the chair afterwards, and I said, and I'd known her, and I said, here's the truth. For 2 hours of my life, I listened to these like serious conversations about 52 different gender identities. I will never get those 2 hours back, ever. I said that I can't serve on this board. This is a waste of my time. I don't believe a bit of what are you doing? That's who we are, okay? We've got that going on. So, we have clergy that are performing same-sex unions, weddings. Nothing happens to them, okay? If you didn't know this, that in 2016 at Jurisdictional Conference, Bishop Karen Oliveto, married to a woman, was elected bishop, and a complaint was filed, judicial council involved, sent it to the Council of Bishops, who are there for life, and said, you need to take her, you need to remove her. This is against our rules. She's still a bishop today. Okay, this is a fact. 3 weeks ago, jurisdictional conference out west, they elected another gay man married to a man as a new bishop. Out east, a gay man and married to another man came 20 votes short from being elected. What's my point? To scare you? I'm saying there's a bigger problem than just biblical interpretation. Is that we have leaders that are doing whatever they want and they're not accountable to anybody. Okay? And for pastors that are traditional or conservative, that makes us a little nervous. Fair? For churches, it should make you a little bit nervous about that. So, this is where we are, folks. And then, we talk about theology. Let me get to, Tom Berlin, that guy. He's a new bishop. I was at General Conference in St. Louis, and this guy got up like from here to you and talked about, traditional rules, traditional theologies, a virus in the church. It's a virus. It needs to be eradicated. We need to wash our hands of it. Kenitha Bingham Tsai, BMT, in her interview 3 weeks ago said, it's not important that we agree about who Jesus is. He can be, who do you want him to be, right? She went on to say, and you can look this up, sure, God became flesh, but not particular flesh. So not like some of us think of that particular flesh would be Jesus of Nazareth. Fair? Said, no, not particular flesh. In fact, God became incarnate in our culture, but not just one culture, not just like that culture, like we know it's historical. Pontius Pilate was there and all this kind of stuff. This is our new bishop. You understand that? And maybe that's not a big deal, but consider this. This is the norm of our bishops in the United States. Leaders, well, let me say this. People who are in leadership position have followers. Fair? And they're influential. And so this kind of theology that's out there, it stands up against I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, in Jesus Christ, his only Son, our Lord. It's a theology that looks at John 14, and when Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. That's exclusionary. That's what they say, not me. That's not fair. That theology that some of you deplorable Christians have, right, is not fair. There are many ways to God. That's a product. And I'm still under, this is the bigger problem. Okay? When Bill Poland, and I like Bill. I've known Bill. Bill's known me since I was in high school. Okay? I'm 57. That was a lot of years ago. So I've known him a long time, and I've never had a crossword with him. But he said to my people last week, when they were really challenging him, as I think some of you did, about you had no authority to change the rules last November before Thanksgiving and say, we're no longer, don't worry, you can do gay weddings, pastors. You can have gay weddings in your church, and we're going to ordain. We're not going to file charges. And so my folks, I had some folks rather fired up about that, and as I have been, and saying, either we live under a covenant or we don't, or we cherry pick it. And Bill said something that bothered a lot of my people and bothered me. He said, well, you know what we've always done in the United Methodist Church is practice leads polity. And polity is the book of discipline, right? Our rules. Practice leads polity. This is why we did it. The rules will change. They're going to change. But Iowa got out ahead of it. So think about that. There's a lot of people that gamble. Fair? If that's a practice of a lot of people in Iowa, shouldn't our polity change? If it's contextual, is what they say, if it's a matter of conscience. In the Lutheran Church of America, they have 4 conscience-bound positions a Lutheran church could take when they changed their rules about gay and lesbian pastors in 2015, I think. So pastors at that time could take a consciousness stance and say, I believe and my church believes it's against Scripture. And they would leave you alone. And then there were like other conscious positions that churches could take. And of course, the ELCA began to ordain gay and lesbian pastors and do marriages and all that stuff. And they've continued to decline, accelerated decline, okay? But you look at that and think back on that, because I've heard our conference leaders use that word conscience a lot, right? Conscience is different than Scripture. Fair? I mean, it's different. They're different things. Conscience, folks, becomes, well, I've got my truth. Phil's got his truth. Jane, you've got your truth. It doesn't matter that they're all the same. It doesn't matter, right? Your conscience says this is okay. I mean, it's just, to me, part of this bigger problem I'm trying to say, don't let them say it's not all about gay and lesbian stuff. There's a bigger problem going on in the United Methodist Church that my opinion is it's not going to get better. And if you are, again, of right and center, traditional conservative persuasion, okay, voices of traditional conservative pastors and laity are being pushed out of the United Methodist Church even before the GMC came up. And I want you to think about that. When we voted in June down at our Iowa annual conference, you could tell on some issues and some votes it's 70-30. 70 people. So we get we're going to vote on the official stance of the Iowa annual conference is to go against the Second Amendment constitutional thing that we voted on last week. Well, 70% of folks says, yeah, guns are bad. And I don't mean to insult anybody, but the point is there's a breakdown. And understand that when I say with confidence, things aren't going to get better in our denomination for those who are more traditional. At General Conference, if it has not been for the Africans, Filipinos, and Koreans over the last several General Conferences, okay, our book of discipline would have changed a long time ago. North America, here in the United States delegates, the traditional conservative voices are shrinking. When I was elected in 2016, I was the only traditional clergy person. The other 5 were progressive. Norma Morrison and Becky High were 2 conservative lay people. The other 4 were progressive. The current Iowa Annual Conference delegation is 100% progressive. That means there's no voice. There's no voice. Okay, now what's going on? Go back, early adapters, right? So the early adapters that are jumping to the Global Methodist Church, they have been strong, articulate, smart leaders and voices in their annual conferences and at General Conference. Just know that. They're gone. They won't, we won't have those voices, okay? I think maybe in 2024, if Africans get here, that could be different. That's a big problem. Third big problem, if we go to slide 31, please. Thank you for jumping around. This is something I came up with to understand this is what I call my dollars and cents argument. This is what I call my business argument. So seven sisters of Protestantism, Presbyterian, Episcopal, Disciples of Christ, UCC, Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, American Baptist, they've all been in decline. When they changed their rules on the sexual ethic thing, their decline accelerated. When their theologies and official statements became much more progressively liberal, their decline accelerated. I read a thing from a person of the day that looked at projections for the Evangelical Lutheran Church of America, and that by 2050, they will have gone from 5 million members back in the 80s to 69,000. So here's what I call the dollars and cents. Put aside everything that you feel about gay and lesbian people or transgender or bisexual or, the whole alphabet. Consider this. Here's how I understand what these folks did. Is that these churches said, we're We're really in a conundrum coming out of the 60s and 70s, sexual revolution and all this kind of stuff. Gosh, we want to be relevant. We want to be relevant. So there's gay and lesbian people out here and their families and their friends. If we would just change our rules, they'll come. And we're going to make a wager. Presbyterians, Lutherans, here's the wager. We're going to change our rules about gay and lesbian weddings, same-sex weddings, and homosexual pastors, and our conservative people will still hang. They'll still hang in. The people that are already in the pews will stay in the pews, and these hypothetical people are going to come and fill our church up. What happened? What happened is the conservative traditional people said, nope, can't be part of that. And they left. And they're at a big box church, they're to Cornerstone, they're to whatever. And the gay and lesbian people didn't show up. Think about that. So here's the point. Here's the business argument. Here's the dollar and cents argument. Put aside your feelings about it. Why do we United Methodists think it's going to be a different result for us? Right? You all know the old saying. If you keep doing the same thing and you expect better results, what's that the definition of what? Insanity. I'm just saying. That's a piece of this as well. Why are we here? Why do we need to make these decisions? I'm going to go back to where I started. I want to be part of an exciting new denomination that's traditional, that's loving, that's scripture-based in everything, but that has some guardrails set up and is not ashamed and unafraid, okay, to say, we're not that, we're this. Global Methodist Church doesn't have a lot to say about human sexuality, but it's really clear. Marriage is between one man and one woman. There's a paragraph about sexual sin. But, again, I look at this, make the case for considering to make the jump to Global Methodist. I think it's a new day. I think that we're getting act together, right? That's what happens when it's an early adapter thing. But I think in time, it'll be exciting to be part of that, to be part of a denomination where the bishops will be elected and have term limits. You're a bishop for 8 or 12 years, and then either you retire or you go back to the local church. Where district superintendents, like the EUB church used to do, the pastors of the conference will elect a district superintendent. And they have to serve a church the same time they're serving as a district superintendent. Okay? And when their term's over, unless they retire, they go back to a church. And because we're all broken human beings, the genius of this is that if I'm Pastor Phil and Pastor Mike's district superintendent, and I'm a jerk to them, and I mistreat them, right? Then I go back to a church, and suddenly Phil's the district superintendent. How's that going to work out?
Very bad.
Fair? But see, our United Methodist system is different. The bishop selects who they want, and again, I'm not afraid to say that the bishops most times pick district superintendents who are not leaders. They're not leaders. I know I'm being judgmental, and again, what did I say? This is my 22nd meeting in 10 days. It's okay. I've had that conversation with Bishop Flory. She pulled a group of us pastors down. What do they call us? The positive deviants. A number of years ago, her first or second year, her first year, and pulled about 5 pastors down to Des Moines because we lead growing churches, and spent a day tell us what you're doing. Okay, so we did. And at the end of it, Bishop Lori, who, by the way, I love her. She's been my pastor and has a pastor's heart. And that illustrates how we can love one another and say to one another, as I've said to her a number of times, and as I've said to Bill Poland, I understand where you're coming from. I disagree, but I still love you. Bishop Lori said at this meeting, Tom, other pastors, what can I best do to help you as your bishop? And my number one answer, I said, Bishop, when you select district superintendents or when you hire conference staff, get leaders. Get people that your clergy will follow, We may not agree with them. We may not even like them. But if we see that they have been proven leaders in their local churches and have gotten results, we will much more easily follow them. And she's like, yeah, whatever. It hasn't happened. Okay? So that's the case, I think, in three things that's going on that puts us at an historical moment in time. And how do you do it? Well, most of you kind of have an idea how you do it, right? How do you disaffiliate? Well, my first thing is get informed. Get up to speed, okay? There's links, there's things, places you can go to. I didn't bring any with me. I've got some Sharpie notes on the front of my folder. That's all I've got, Get informed, stay informed. Get together and talk about it. If you have questions, ask them. Get together, talk about them. If you have questions, I wouldn't call the conference center for an answer. Okay? They want to maintain the institution. They're not bad. They're not evil. I don't want to hate them and hurt them and, burn them in the town square. But I'm just being honest with you. They want to maintain the institution. Okay? As of right now, I counted the other day, there are 47 United Methodist churches in Iowa that are what I call in the pipeline, or they have disaffiliated successfully. So like Grandview and Center Grove and Wesley, we're not even in the pipeline, okay? We haven't had that we'll get there. We'll have a disaffiliation vote in the new year. So get informed. And it's all out there. You can find, where the rules are. Let's go to slide number 39. You probably know this, so forgive me. I want to go to questions as soon as I can. You got to pay your this year's apportionments, next year's apportionments, 2 years apportionments, and then you get your unfunded pension liability. Okay. Thankfully, cooler heads prevailed with our Iowa cabinet, because when paragraph 2553 was passed down in St. Louis, they put in one of those, kind of like in some job contracts, like and other duties is assigned, right? And so it was like apportionments, unfunded pension liabilities, and any other things the conference thinks are necessary. So some conferences put in that if you're going to disaffiliate, like New Jersey did, like apportionments, pension, and we want 50% of your assessed property value, or 10%. That's where Iowa started. A district superintendent accidentally emailed the wrong set of guidelines to a pastor, and it was the draft of where our cabinet started. Like, if you haven't paid your apportionments in the current year, you owe 5 years apportionments, and unfunded pension, and 10% of your assessed property value. By the grace of God, cooler heads prevailed. So you can get that number if you haven't gotten it already. Again, you follow the instructions, because you already know this to be true. Some of those are out of date. There's some group of people that say, we don't have to follow as Pastor Phil says, the book of suggestions. But if you're going to leave, you better follow them to the T. We're not going to approve your disaffiliation. So, okay, rules for thee, not for me, but all right, okay. Encourage everyone to investigate Wesleyan Covenant Association, and I would say the GMC. Follow the directions exactly. And again, this is all available to you. Really important. Update your membership rolls if you're going to have a disaffiliation vote. Okay? Only their rules, not ours. If it was up to me, I have people at Grandview that have been worshiping there for the 14 years I've been there, and they've never joined. They can't. It's a Catholic town. They go, Grandma would die if I joined a Methodist church. I'm like, yeah, okay. And that's okay. So do your membership rolls, because only members over the age of 18 can vote in your disaffiliation. The 18-year-old rule is in Iowa, a rule that pertains to the state of Iowa. This is a property issue, legal issue, so you've got to be over 18. So, and have these information meetings. And, like, what's this going to mean? I get those kinds of questions from my folks. So what happens if we disaffiliate? What happens? It's like, well, we vote on Sunday, and then you're going to come to your cell group meeting on Monday, and then we're going to have Wednesday our family and children thing, and Sunday I'll be in the pulpit. The next Sunday I'll probably preach reconciliation and healing. And, in other words, if you disaffiliate, the timeline is like this. Like, you disaffiliate, have your vote before February 15th. And so you're in the process. You've got some months there to do the title search and, get a lawyer involved. And there's instructions out there. But you see, you don't stop being part of the United Methodist denomination until the Iowa Annual Conference approves it in June, the first week. And then there's some other stuff that has to happen. Like for Grandview, our hostage fee is $191,000. Okay, so we write a check. Here's your money. Here's proof that we own the property. I don't know, whatever it is. June 30th, you're done. Now, let me quickly say this. Some people say, well, let's just be independent and non-denominational. You can do that. But understand there's this much stuff to do. If you think, I had some Grandview people going, we got it figured out, Pastor Tom. We're just going to disaffiliate, and we're going to be our own Grandview Christian community, and you're going to stay as our pastor, and then in several years we'll bring a new one up, and you can mentor them. We'll figure out your pension and stuff. I'm like, well, that sounds swell, except I'm not going to do it with you. Going non-denominational means you got some things to do, okay? It's not that easy. Like, we'll just do our own thing. You need to get yourself a 501c3 status so that you can receive non-taxable things. You need to write your own policies and procedures. You need to write bylaws and give them to the state of Iowa. You need to decide what kind of pastor do we want. You want seminary trained? What do you want? You're going to pay them. You're going to pay health insurance. You're going to pay benefits. See, all those things are taken care of if you join a denomination. Okay, so I'm just, maybe I'm being mean, but if you're thinking, life's a breeze, we'll just be independent and do whatever we want. Then you have to decide how you're going to get a pastor. At least with one denomination or the other, UMC, GMC, there is a pastor pool, so to speak. So, that's my word on that is disaffiliate. That's the timeline. And then in that time, some churches take their disaffiliation vote and say thank you. If it's over 66.7%, or if it's supermajority, they say thank you to the district superintendent. We'll take it from here. Have a safe drive home. And the church stays, and they vote to become GMC and to begin the process of applying. Some churches wait a while and do a separate vote, but it is a separate vote. Just because you disaffiliate does not automatically make you GMC. You have to apply for that and look into that and make those kind of formal things. Same with clergy. You have to talk to Angela. And Angela's her name right now. Thankfully, she's got a staff working with her. Back in March, I was at a WCA event down in Texas, and Angela was there, and she's wonderful. She's like the registrar of clergy. And she was like answering all the emails and everything. But you got to go through Angela. It's on the GMC website. But clergy, we also have to apply for that and be accepted into the GMC. So, all right, first question off the top of your head. I'm sorry I talk so much. Because this is just the beginning, by the way, of you needing to get clarity and be clear on what you'd be voting for.
Oh, perfect. Last week we talked a lot about the accountability thing, which you mentioned quite a bit of. They didn't really seem to provide us with adequate answers, in my opinion, on how they're going to deal with accountability in the future. Just curious what the GMC plans to do for accountability.
Yeah, and here's my honest answer. I have been so focused on this set of railroad tracks of leading, a big church through this, that I haven't gone into the transitional book of discipline, but I'm pretty confident because I know I was included in a lot of those early emails that went out to several thousand WCA people like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? So there will be accountability from the bishop, cabinet, or the board of ordained ministry in the GMC. They're going to have very clear, so it's probably be along the lines of if a GMC pastor did a gay wedding, they're done. They're done. Like, we'll take your credentials, please. Now, let me say something. The early adapters are forming the Global Methodist Church now. That's what gives me such high confidence that for the first 10 years or so, the people that are going to be in charge, so to speak, are the people that took big risks to create this. And so they know what was broken about the United Methodist Church and are putting things in place to say, we're not doing that. You know, so yeah, that's all I know about that. I'm just confident there'll be better accountability.
The transitional book says something about an equal number of clergy and laity sitting in a judicial situation, and everybody goes to that, including the bishop. There won't be any, the bishop won't have to auto-dominate a charge or not
Right.
for it to be heard.
Right, yeah. So they will do a just resolution.
I just want to make sure I understand. At the beginning, you said something about, oh, sorry. You said something about the Book of Discipline being broke or wrong or something, anyway. So does that mean that the Global is revamping the book?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then how do we,
Let me help you out here. In general, you know, I was talking about a lot of broken practices and habits and broken rules or things, you know, like guaranteed appointments and things like that. The transitional book of discipline is looked at the book of our United Methodist Book of Discipline first, and said, what are the Wesleyan traditional structures, rules, and so forth? Let's start there. And that kind of next step is, what's broken? What's not working? Like our accountable system and all this. And then they rewrote that, okay? And so not all of our United Methodist Book of Discipline is broken. The brokenness comes in it either not being enforced or being enforced selectively, which is why I go back to the leadership is the biggest issue.
okay, so when would that be done in order for us to, I don't know, to understand that we're making the right decision?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep, I do.
By going with the Global.
So if you go onto the website, the GMC, Global Methodist Church website, you can find the Transitional Book of Discipline. You can download it. You can read it. And let me clarify something. Because, you know, still working through a system, it's transitional because the Global Methodist Church needs to have their own general conference, our own legislative branch to approve that. Which means, because we're human beings, that even GMC, whenever they pull a convening conference together, there's gonna be some back and forth arguing, horse trading and everything else. That's why it's called transitional. But it had to start somewhere. But you can read it. I haven't. I mean, you've read some of it. I've
read most of it, and you know what they're going in with. It's going to hit the floor. You know what the intentions are, but you never know what comes out the other side. Box of chocolates.
Yeah.
Others. I'll be right there.
I was just going to make a comment about the Book of Discipline. I think if you looked at the United Methodist Book of Discipline as it stands now, it's probably not a lot different than the Global Transitional Book. It's just that it's not enforced the same way.
Yeah. I mean,
The polity is different, but the Book of Discipline has not changed since 2016.
no.
Will likely.
2016 changes, but then also the 2019, what little we got, here's the deal. What little we got accomplished in St. Louis, needed to be like approved at the 2020 General Conference, which was called off. So we didn't make a lot of changes in St. Louis. We made some to the pension system, and actually, the enforcement was beefed up, if you will, in St. Louis. So it changed, and in what should be like the 2020 Book of Discipline. If a pastor is found guilty of performing a same-sex wedding, they have to hand their credentials in. There's not any wiggle room anymore, okay? So that's one of the things that, I think that the GMC said, yeah, we like that rule. That'll get your attention, So, yeah, Tom, you're gonna ask about timeline?
Tom, for the sake that we're filming this, could you repeat his question, please?
Oh, so the gentleman from Epworth Church asked about the timeline. And I'm flipping through papers because I've got it printed somewhere and I want to make sure I get it right. Okay, so, here's Tom's timeline because I look at what they gave us and I'm saying, okay, and this is what I've said to Grandview. We want to have all of our straw polls taken by November 20th. We want our administrative board to make the decision and the vote on whether to ask the district superintendent to come do the church conference to disaffiliate. We want to have that decision and that request in before the end of the year. Then the district superintendent, it's on them to set a meeting with the church by February 15th, 2023. So you've got January and February for him to come and you do your meeting, and you have to use his ballot. And by the way, only the ad board can request that meeting. I can't, and the membership can't. So the ad board decides. They come, the district superintendent comes. We're pushing them to change this, but they bring their ballot. The ballot says yes, disaffiliate, no, disaffiliate, abstain. So what's happened in some churches around the country is that some people come in, they're not up to speed, but they're a member, and they're like, I'm going to stay here, I don't care, so they abstain. In this case, when they come in and say, we got 100 people in here voting, you need 67 of them to give a thumbs up yes. Well, kind of like what happened in Ogden Church, not far from here, had a bunch of people abstain. That's a no vote. So they didn't hit their percentage.
The latest information I had, there is not a required abstain on the ballot.
The DSs have taken it off?
There is not a mandatory, there is only, you can provide your own ballot. There's a question that you must ask. They give you the wording, but you can yes or no.
Awesome, hallelujah.
That is the last email that I have gotten.
Okay. So yeah, but by February 15th, you need to have that. Then it says by April 1st, there's a bunch of paperwork you've got to submit. And then probably a separate vote by April 1st to join the GMC. June, as I said, in June is the conference votes on it. And then June 30th, the church is disaffiliated. You've paid your money. You've moved all your church records to the conference. Then on July 1st, you got to take down all your cross and flame signs and off your logos you're building. And I don't know if Iowa's doing this or not. Some conferences, one of the requirements is, and you have to load up all your United Methodist hymnals and bring them to the conference center. But the good news is, the Global Methodist Church just introduced a new hymnal. And you know how, by the way, how our hymnal, the 1989 hymnal has got sections like In Praise of Christ, the Passion, Christmas, and stuff. So the GMC's sections are all based on the Nicene Creed. All the hymns are under that section of the Nicene Creed, like a belief in God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and the church and all that. Now, there's a second timeline. If you can't get it all together now, so far, and we are hopeful that our new bishop won't change this, okay, or add any more requirements, what's the second one? You can start doing this stuff, follow the same thing, like in January or February, start having your meetings and do this. And basically, they've set another special annual conference in November of 2023 down in Des Moines just to approve disaffiliations. So that, I'm not familiar with that second timeline because we're following the first one. Is that helpful? We're trying to get it all done and know whether we're going to do a special meeting by the end of this year. And by February 15th, we'll know what we're going to do.
Tom's got a question up here.
Yeah, I'd like to know how you see the relationship between the Wesleyan Covenant Association and the Global Methodist
Yeah,
Church.
that's a great question. So WCA started exactly as that in October of 2016, saying we need like-minded people to come together, clergy and laity, to support each other, to talk to each other, to build each other up, to teach. So we did a couple of workshops here in Iowa for WCAP things, and it's all positive. When the GMC launched, the Global Methodist was launched by Methodists. That's an important thing to know. This wasn't launched by Baptists or Pentecostals. Many, but not all, of those people were leaders of the WCA. So here's one way to think about it. The Wesleyan Covenant Association still exists, and a lot of its role right now is to help people off the Titanic into the lifeboats. I mean, that's the way to understand it. That's the way it was explained to me at that meeting I was at in Texas with WCA leaders and future GMC leaders. They said, your local chapter of WCA, that's why I'm here tonight. And that's why some of the WCA board of directors are all around Iowa doing presentations like this. They're also starting with the same slides that we made last August, but everybody's got their own flavor. So is that helpful? Yep. Lifeboats this way.
When is the first GMC conference?
I don't know. Their first general conference.
Yeah, where they would be approving the Book of Discipline.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen a date on that. And again, I apologize, but part of it's just where I am capacity-wise. I'll jump up there when this set of railroad tracks is laid. I haven't seen it.
They don't have a hard date yet, but they're shooting for February 24. But because some other complications that have come up, there might be one yet later, or there might be one yet in 2023 if they can get all their paperwork put together.
And I assume that's the same kind of thing that, people could go, I'd probably go and observe, because I don't know what our process is going to be for getting elected to be delegates or any of that kind of stuff. There's parts of this that I don't know yet, and as I've already said, because my head hasn't gone there yet, just because this is so important and so historical to get this right now. But, there's questions like, what will our conference be? 2 years ago, I was part of a group of 9 pastors starting that conversation from the Dakotas and Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and I was representing Iowa. And we assume it's going to be like, where's a cluster of GMC churches show up? So realistically, if it's kind of the tri-state area, right? So when the people go to do that, if they say, well, here's kind of the, here's the center, and we're going to put a piece of string out on the map and do a circle, and say, okay, yeah, well, Manchester and whoever else, Colesburg, you're within the tri-state conference. We're guessing that that's what's going to happen,
And then you were talking about February, January dates, but we've got a December vote. We got a December vote that we have to take.
December the 12th.
So is that different than what he was saying with the
No,
February?
we're just running a few weeks ahead of him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a bigger ship to turn than we do.
We're still doing our straw polls over in Dubuque and gathering information. That's what my study and steering team wanted to do, and so we're getting pretty good information of where people want to go before we pull the trigger to have that formal binding disaffiliation vote. We're not going into that with less than 75% of people saying, I want to leave and join the GMC. If Grandview, is like 60-40, now let's back up the bus. We need to do some more education. So.
This is not about the time, going to oh, amazing.
Hey, we're all learners.
This going back to the Book of Discipline.
Uh-huh.
So the original Book of Discipline was with John Wesley. Am I understanding this? Okay.
Yeah, in 1784.
So it gets changed along the way as the church develops. Is that correct?
There have been changes and there's a way to change it, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but the basic premise stays the same? Or
Yeah.
does it adapt to how the society is going at the time and how?
Yeah, of course there's some of that. Like our preachers don't ride horses anymore, and so we don't have to have a special rules and funds for tired, worn-out preachers. That's like that once upon a time, the circuit riders, tired, worn-out preachers, So it changes with the times, but what I would say is, one, it goes through the legislative process, meaning duly elected clergy and laity. Two, that certainly the early disciplines were everything was hung to Scripture in some way. It was connected to, what does God say, and what's best for the Methodist people. And so then, yes, as the world changed, things got added, some things subtracted, and that's what General Conference is. It is mimics our United States Congress, and people come and they bring motions, they bring legislations, and you spend the first week in committees, and you fight and argue, and if it doesn't make it out of the committee, it's not going to make it to the floor. But unless people really get behind it, then you can vote on it. So it's just like what Congress does. And we get, if you're a General Conference delegate, I just, like a month ago, threw my stuff from 2016 away, like that's worthless. But it's like a stack of, 3-ring binders. It's like that much stuff. And you got to read through it. It's people want this and people want that and people want to change this. And then you get into social principles and book of resolutions. And as I say, that's where the people that are really passionate about recycled toilet paper, they want to make sure we got a stand on recycled toilet paper. I mean, we have stands on everything. So that's in the Book of Discipline. But it's supposed to be prayerfully and representative government, like a republic, is how it gets there.
Thank you.
Is that helpful?
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, coming. We're gonna have to wrap it up pretty quick,
Yep.
guys.
You got a choir coming in. Is that right, a choir?
No choir tonight? Okay, well, you gotta get to Des Moines anyway.
Yeah. How are the bishops appointed, elected,
In the GMC?
in the GMC, and compare that to what the EMC is doing now?
Okay, so as I understand it, bishops will be elected by the clergy and laity at the annual conference. Okay? So again, go to a republic representative type government. You'll have clergy and laity that go to the annual conference of the GMC, and there'll be bishop candidates. And as I understand it, anybody here been to annual conference ever? You've gone to conference to vote? Okay, so yeah, that means you could elect them. Now, delegates from the Iowa Annual Conference, like the last one's, we get 6. It's based on membership. Iowa's membership, we get 6 clergy and 6 laity to go to general conference. Then there's 6 more clergy, 6 more laity that are elected to go to jurisdictional conference. Jurisdictional conference, there's 5 jurisdictions. We're in the north central jurisdiction, Minnesota, maybe the Dakotas, I can't remember anymore, but there's Dakotas in it, and Minnesota and Wisconsin and Illinois and Ohio, Iowa. Okay, so basically we send 12 delegates. And so when I took part in it in Peoria, you'll have like 10 people that are nominated either by the delegation or the conference to be a bishop candidate. So the time we spend at jurisdictional conference is really all about, it's really all about interviewing and talking to the bishop candidates and then taking a series of ballots. And so you interview them, you ask questions of them, go in and you vote. And out of 10, somebody's got to get, like, if the number, you got to have at least 106 to get elected, right? So they may go a couple ballots, nobody gets elected. Well, that's when the horse trading politics start. So my opinion, the bishop candidates are smart people. I don't think anybody that's a bishop in the United Methodist Church is a dummy. Seriously. We differ, we have different theologies and ideologies, but they're smart. But then you get into, you know, the Iowa, conservative Iowa folks, which there are no more, but back then, we'd get together with the Indiana people and the Illinois people and go, here's the deal. We really like this bishop. Who do you like? We like, okay, well, we'll vote for your guy, you vote for him. We're going to try and get him over the threshold. And so you got a lot of that stuff going on. And finally, they start to get elected, and the field narrows. And so it's a quite interesting process. But it is, I can't remember the percentage. There's like a percentage, like our bishops are elected by 0.01% of the members of the United Methodist Church. You know, but we're a representative government, so yeah, that's how, as I understand it, that's how bishops will get elected in the GMC. And I already told you about how district superintendents will go. And again, I'm trusting. You know what I mean? I'm trusting. I know, and have had chances to have meals with and do some presentations with some of the men and women who are the architects and drivers behind the GMC, and I trust them. Okay? They know what's been broken. They know what I feel what's going to fix things. So, Ad Board Chair?
I wanted to clarify one thing. We were talking about the date and everything here, and this might help some of the other churches. Our church conference for disaffiliation has been set for December 12th at 6 o'clock p.m. here. I believe that's a Monday night. Just so everybody knows, we had originally requested a date for the end of December because of the December 30th deadline. We weren't sure, all that. That has to be chaired by district superintendent. We were given a choice of, I think it was 2 dates, both of them the week of December 12th. And the district superintendent has a lot going on. There's a lot of churches that he has to visit for this. There were a lot of people that already had that request in. So that was the date that one of the 2 dates that we were given. I believe they were both from that week. So I know I've gotten a couple of questions on, you know, how come we're doing it so soon? Why don't we do it later? The date really depends on the district superintendent. So if you're another church that doesn't have that in, you need to get a request for that in to try and get something scheduled, because there are not a lot of dates available, is my understanding. So
yeah, and you know, the other thing about, you know, churches, if you haven't done this yet, consider 1 or 2 people work with your pastor. Don't put this all on the pastor. 1 or 2 people, or 3, or whatever. Let this become your short-term hobby. I mean, seriously, you know, you love your church, okay? Part of the work, one, you don't want anybody to get to December 31st, 2023 and go, what? We had a chance to leave and you didn't tell us? You don't want that. Secondly, more information is better. So if at least 2 people say, yeah, I know, I've been, you know, I get it. I pastor small churches. Like, I'm the organist and the chair of the trustees and the, you know, teach Sunday school. You know, you may have to say, okay, I got to say no to something so I can get myself up to speed, and more importantly, help answer questions. And if you think you're going to disaffiliate, be those guides, be those navigators, right, that are saying, church, here's how we're going to do it. You know, so I would ask you to prayerfully consider that. And again, you know, keep your pastor in the loop. But as Dan, no, what? What's your name? Mark. As Mark said, absolutely. Those people that your hobby, pay attention to the timeline. This information is all out there. You know, you can even go online and download a 45-page study book called BUMC, or maybe some of you have.
I watched the video.
I haven't. That's what Bill sent me. I said, you got any resources you want me for the Sunday night thing? So he sent a link, and so the communications manager, Janelle, pulls it off and is like, he wants us to make copies of this 45-page book. I said, well, I don't know if he wants us to or not, but we're not. You know, we've got over 200 people showing up. It's like, no, we're not going to give somebody a 45-page book. So anyway, I appreciate your patience and your respect and your time tonight. And I hope I have helped more than I've muddied or hurt. I count it all as a privilege. Whenever I am invited, you know, to a colleague's church and then to other churches, it's a privilege to still try and serve God's people for the greater good. You know, that's where I'm in it and why I'm doing it. You know, as I said at one presentation I did, you know, people don't know. So like, oh, so you work for the WCA? And I said, well, yeah, kind of, but I don't get any extra zeros in my paycheck. It's just because of love. And that's the last thing I'll say. I came through small churches, including Hopkinton. And so I still have a heart for the small churches. And I know this is hard, folks. It's hard. You know, man, I would like nothing more than to just be focusing on Advent. I just want to do ministry, okay? But Jesus asked us to do hard things. Go sell everything you got, give it to the poor. No, that's hard. But remember, because I'm going to pray for you all. Is that okay? Is that nothing's impossible for our God. And if you're in a small church and you're saying, if you're like those 10 Israelite men that went with Caleb and Joshua into the promised land and came back and said, oh, it's too big. We're just bugs. We're grasshoppers. This whole denominational thing and disaffiliation, it's a giant. We can't do it. And what did Caleb and Joshua say? Kind of like what David said, you know, hey, I got the Lord. The Lord's on my side, you know. God said, wherever you go, whatever you do, I'll be with you. Don't be afraid. So I give that to you as encouragement. This is important. It's difficult. It's complex. It's hard. But everybody sitting in this room, except maybe some of the young people, you have done some hard things in your life. Don't forget that. Okay? If you feel God is leading you to do this, you can do it. So, again, I'm always available, emails, texts, whatever, to talk. If I can answer a question going forward, I'll help you however I can. You know, I don't want Mike calling me wanting to go out to eat or something. So, Jones, you know, if you got a question, fine. I'm giving him a hard time. You keep him in line, Phil.
I do my best.
Please do. I know, he calls us like, yeah. Well, let me pray for y'all. You want to stand up with me? Is that okay? Can you do that? You all? Oh, good. Well, I'm going to pray for you, and then we'll have some great music from these young people. Okay, I'm going to leave your clicker right here. Okay. Hey, if you're comfortable doing this, reach out and hold on to somebody's hand. I think that's an important sign and symbol of who we are. It's a simple symbol and gesture that even if you don't know who you're standing next to, I want you to understand that we're in it together as God's people. And that's the way God intended it. We are right here tonight, the Christian community. And you are salt because you're precious. Okay? You're salt, and we're called to be salt to preserve and to help save, for God to use us. And so we do that together. So may God bless each one of you and your church and your family. May God lift you up. May God protect you from evil. May God provide everything you personally and your household and your congregation, may God provide abundantly everything you need right now. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, amen. Let's sing.